Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide, and in today's video we're going to be checking out and comparing display performance and image quality between the remarkable Paper Pro and the Tab X C. These two are currently on the market with the exclusion of the Quaderno A4 Gen 3, which is also a color device, but it doesn't have a front light and it's using an older Kaleido panel, which is not as good as the one that's being used here in the Tab X C. So basically these two are the large format front lit color e-ink devices that you can currently find on the market if that's what you are looking for. Obviously, the Remarkable and the Boox platform as an ecosystem are completely different beasts and completely different platforms. This video is not going to be focusing on these differences or what the priorities are. I'm going to assume that you are already in the process of doing research and that you know some basics about these two. For those who have no idea what it is, the bottom line, the shortest TLDR type of a summary is Remarkable. It's focusing on simplicity, but it does have some extended functionalities that are most definitely useful. However, its overall ethos is color ePaper type of a tablet that is trying to replace the role of paper in your daily lives. On the other hand, Boox platform and the Tab X C in this case is an e-tablet, an Android tablet that just happens to be using an ePaper screen. As such, it has vastly more functionalities, power, and all of that kind of stuff, but that comes at a price of increased complexity, and in the case of a Boox device, a really steep learning curve that's not that intuitive, that can easily be forgotten if you don't use the device on a daily basis. Default settings are really not that good, user interface is not intuitive, and user experience is not friendly. So they're really not apples to apples, but they are devices that you're probably going to be considering if what you're looking for is a large format color e-ink tablet with a front light. If you like the work that I do and you would like to support that independence in work, you can head on over to mydeepguide.com/shop, where you can find high quality ePaper and template products for your ePaper devices. MDO, or My Daily Organizer, is a workbook to help you organize all of your personal or professional yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily needs. It is a completely interlinked workbook, making it an extremely powerful addition to any of your ePaper devices. MMP, or My Deep Guide Meeting Planner, is also a hyperlinked workbook focused on helping you simplify, centralize, and organize all of your meeting planning needs, allowing you seamless navigation between different meetings from the meeting index page, and with each meeting having the ability to have individual agenda and notes. You can also find My Deep Guide curated templates, which is a collection of very carefully crafted notebook templates. What makes MDG curated templates different, all of them are pixel perfect for the device screen size that you are using them on. This is why there are so many different variations, so that you can choose the one that fits your device perfectly. These templates also maintain a universal 8mm line spacing standard and 4mm grid spacing standard. Purchasing any of these products will enhance your productivity and simplify your organization. You also directly support independence of My Deep Guide. In order to analyze the display performance and image quality of these two devices, I'm going to be using my own proprietary developed methodology for measuring these aspects, because we don't have something like that, so I'm making one. It's called Display Analysis Framework, DAF for short. It's not yet fully finalized. I'm still in the stages of kind of finding the edge case scenarios and maybe bugs or some things that I'm not fully happy with, and those kind of shortcomings of a methodology can only be exposed through extensive testing and putting it through real-world paces. So I'm basically tackling two things at the same time. I'm giving you some preliminary testing results and comparisons between all of these different types of devices that you're going to be seeing on My Deep Guide in this time period, and I'm also testing out the DAF methodology, trying to find the holes, patch them up, fix them up, and get it to a full-on ready state as soon as I can. Okay, so let's dig in. And let's start with the readability analysis, starting with Tab X C. And since we have already analyzed both of these devices in different comparisons, I'm just going to go kind of quickly over these. They're performing well, but they both have issues, with the Remarkable Paper Pro having issues with uniformity and finer characters rendering, and Tab X C having problems with the darkness and the fuzziness, as you can see here, of the CFA layer. That being said, their size actually goes into the advantage here, and that helps the readability results so that they are, yep, definitely readable and legible, but they are not really excellent performance here. But I wouldn't judge either of them as an excellent performer, except that when we're looking at this, I mean, there's this strange way that Remarkable Paper Pro is cheating the transparency, which is exposed with having grayscale fonts. There's basically hiding some of the cells and leaving some of the black cells to kind of simulate type of grayscaleness, but that affects readability quite a lot, as you can see, especially in thin fonts under 50% or 100% as well. And this is exactly something that we can see throughout the final results, with Tab X being the blue one and Remarkable Paper Pro the orange one. And in standard thin and thick fonts, Tab X C outperforms Remarkable Paper Pro, as well as in the final readability score. Contrast and uniformity is a test that measures the display quality, uniformity, and also the contrast and the rendering of the white and black colors on the displays. It measures the white and the black color displayed in excellent, average, and poor lighting conditions, and in two variations. So we have the display portion of the test and observable portion of the test, by adjusting the shutter speed of the camera when capturing in different lighting conditions. In the display portion of the test, it is equalized to see if some of the uniformity issues or display quality issues are popping out in different lighting conditions. And the observable portion of the test is the most important one, because it directly resembles what you will be able to see on these devices in excellent, average, and poor lighting conditions. And the Tab X C, you can see the CFA layer clearly here, which affects the uniformity, but in this case it affects it in a positive way, because it's effectively hiding the deficiencies of the cell structure of the ink cells underneath it. So it will give you a fuzzy but uniformly fuzzy type of a image quality. Rendering of the white color is predictably really bad, because all of the Kaleido panels will suffer from that, with the white color actually in poor lighting conditions becoming unusably dark. This has a positive effect on the rendering of the dark color, so there's that to look forward to if that's what you like. That means that use of the front light is basically a requirement, and we can see that in display results it doesn't really add some imperfections or anything like that. And in the observable portion of the results, the front light at 50% is starting to equalize the average and poor lighting conditions. And when moving on to the front light at 100%, we can see that it's finally brightening up the rendering of the white color, but in poor lighting conditions, it's also brightening up the rendering of the black color. Moving on to Remarkable Paper Pro, in both display and observable portions of the test, we can see two things very clearly. First one is it's a lot brighter than the Kaleido panel, especially when you check the observable part here, but we also see some serious uniformity issues here in the black color, with a lot of graininess going on here. With the front light set to 50% in observable portion of test, it's starting to equalize the rendering of the white colors between poor and average lighting conditions, but it's not really doing that much because it's a fairly anemic setting of a front light. And it's only when we set it all the way to 100%, and this is on the high intensity mode turned on, then the poor lighting conditions and the average lighting conditions rendering of the white color is finally equalized. What's very interesting to see is that the calibration of the front light is not really affecting badly the rendering of the black color, so that's a good thing to see. And the final results of the contrast and uniformity look like this. Well, the quality of the display is basically quite a bit in favor of Remarkable Paper Pro, and that comes down to two factors: the CFA and the overall darkness. The darkness of a Kaleido panel is simply so drastic, it's crippling the performance of that screen, and this is also reflected in the most important of the scores, which is the observable variability score, which is basically what you can see, how you can see the white color, black color, and the observable contrast that you end up seeing. And you can see just a really big difference between the Remarkable Paper Pro and the Tab X C. However, when we go to the uniformity of the image, then the story kind of reverses itself. And as I've said, Kaleido 3 panels will have a really good performing uniformity because of the CFA layer, and the Remarkable Paper Pro screen doesn't perform that well because we've seen quite a bit of granularity both in white and especially in the black content. Moving on to the color accuracy test, and we can see the results here for the Tab X C without any front light, with the front light set to 50 and the front light set to 100. And here we have Remarkable Paper Pro's color accuracy without the front light at all, with front light set to 50 and with the front light set to 100. And while we can see dramatically better blue color accuracy and far more saturated type of colors overall, the overall difference is that, let's put them side by side so that you can see. All right, so here they are, Tab X C on the left-hand side, Remarkable Paper Pro on the right-hand side. And the most obvious difference for me is the red and the greens. So the red color, while it's less saturated than it is on the Remarkable Paper Pro, it is far more resembling a red color than this kind of pinkish kind of thing that we have on the Remarkable Paper Pro. But the difference between the greens is quite striking here. And for me, the Tab X C green is far more green than what I see on the Remarkable Paper Pro. And the scores actually reflect that as well. And the blue color is correctly rendered on both of them, but it's far more saturated and better on the Remarkable Paper Pro. And here are the final results. And here I also have a bit of a dilemma. Because if you look at the Tab X C, for example, you have the red score, then the green score is lower, and then we have a much higher blue score. And we get this type of a curve that we have. And if we take a look at the Remarkable Paper Pro, we get to see the same thing, only far more exaggerated, right? So these displays definitely have a problem with displaying the greens mostly, then the reds, and the blues are not that big of a problem. The dilemma I have here is that when we're comparing devices like these, for example, where objectively Remarkable is underperforming in red and in green severely when compared to Tab X C, but in one of the categories, in the blue category, it's outperforming severely, like really dramatically outperforming Tab X C, so much so that it actually pulls the entire score, or the average, ahead of the Tab X C. But my dilemma is, does that simple averaging out of RGB colors and that type of a score, does that represent the real type of a situation or not? And one of the things that I'm thinking is basically setting a minimum threshold and a maximum threshold where a device will receive a fixed penalty of number of points if it scores in any of the categories underneath what is deemed an acceptable compromise. I'll establish the thresholds once I have a much bigger database to actually see what are the ranges that these devices are typically around, and then see like when somebody's totally out of it, that would be the, where the minimum and where the maximums are. And that way maybe I can get a more balanced type of a score where this type of a scenario where a device performs exceptionally well in a single category won't skew the overall score as much. What do you guys think? Do let me know. And here we have reflectivity performance between these two. And while both are performing really well, much more importantly, I think that it's fairly obvious that Remarkable Paper Pro has better reflectivity than the Tab X C, although both have excellent reflectivity. But I'm far more interested in the results themselves because, well, intensity is calculated correctly. So Remarkable is performing better in intensity, which is obvious between the two. The sharpness calculation still has some issues with Kaleido panels, and that CFA filter simply just interferes so much that it creates a false sharpness. Positives here had so many different iterations on trying to solve it, and this was like so far the best performing one. But here we can see that, yeah, this is clearly a sharper reflection than this one, yet yeah, the sharpness is measured in favor of the Tab X C. That's a problem. So the final results here, we have, Tab X C artificially outperforming Remarkable Paper Pro, and that is the fault of the DAF methodology at the moment, specifically this result here, because this is incorrectly inflated, and I believe it's incorrectly inflated because of the CFA filter of the Kaleido panel, but the intensity at least is correct. Both perform really well, but yeah, just kind of giving you my 2 cents that this is a false result, and that although they are close, and I do think that once this is fixed, they will again perform very closely, but that the Remarkable Paper Pro will be edging ahead of the XC. Thankfully, the final difference is not so huge to create a big upset in the final DAF scores. While reflectivity test is an important one and accounted for in all of the DAF final score categories, the differences here are small enough that I don't think that it's going to skew the overall result in general. When we check out the ghosting performance between the Tab X C in HD mode and Remarkable Paper Pro in its only refresh mode, which is the default mode, we can see that they both are performing really well in general, but that the Remarkable Paper Pro does have issues when clearing out only the text type of content. And while it scores well, so the ghosting performance on Remarkable Paper Pro is generally really good, it's competing against a device that has some of the absolute best deghosting performance that I have seen so far. And just for comparison's sake, we can also see that in A2 mode as well, on the Tab X C, we have excellent deghosting performance. And the final result reflects that, so both devices score really well, above 80 here, which is very nice to see, but that deghosting performance of the XC is simply unbeatable at the moment. The uniformity and the general color of both of these devices is quite good, but the main difference that you're going to be seeing between the two is the intensity curve and the temperature basically balance. So the yellow line here is the intensity curve of the front light for the Remarkable Paper Pro with the high intensity mode turned on. So we have like 38 lux with 100% intensity versus 237 lux on the Tab X C, and you have a much different type of a ramping curve on the Tab X C. However, far more indicative here is the temperature on the 50% mix for the Tab X C, because it has color temperature control, while Remarkable Paper Pro doesn't have that. The overall color calibration of the front light is much better and more pleasant at a very consistent 4400-ish kelvins on the Remarkable Paper Pro across the intensity range that was measurable. We move on to the surface roughness category, and here Tab X C, which is what we're looking at right now, is gonna have a really bad time, because as we've seen before, it's one of the worst surface roughness surfaces that we've seen in a very long time, and it definitely affects the writing feel in a severe way, with a combination of a very low surface roughness of 0.216, but far more importantly, super dense and uniform type of a surface that simply doesn't allow enough room for a pen nib to actually go in and out of to actually feel any type of roughness. And therefore, what you actually get to feel is the tip of a really big dull nib basically gliding over just the tips of these peaks of the surface roughness, never actually having a chance to go up and down, producing the sensation of writing on a rough surface, which is exactly what we get to see here on the Remarkable Paper Pro surface. So not only does it have a much higher surface roughness at 1.290, which means that the distance between the peaks and the valleys is way bigger than what we have on the Tab X C, but we also have the uniformity that is far more different. We get that waviness that you can actually see happening here, less density of the profile curve, and nicely rounded valleys, which all basically amounts to a very pleasant writing feel. And that is most definitely reflected in the final scores, where Remarkable Paper Pro basically buries the Boox Tab X C as far as the surface roughness comparison goes, because in every category it is just in a completely different league as far as the writing feel surface goes. Refresh time category is next, and here I record footage at 480 frames per second, and I flip a page that has content to a blank page. Then I invert the footage, pop the contrast so that I can precisely find the exact frame when the display has settled to a changed state. And on the Tab X C in the HD mode, while it will produce a really nice and clean result, you're gonna have to wait for that for quite a little while at 473.39 milliseconds. This refresh speed is considerably improved with 100.10 millisecond in A2 mode. And when we get to Remarkable Paper Pro, well, I hope you get a cup of coffee or tea, because it's gonna take some time, because not only gonna flash around all over the place until it changes the content finally, but it's gonna take a remarkable 811.23 milliseconds until it's finally done with everything that it needs to do. So that means that in this category, refresh time, the tables have turned, and Tab X C basically buries and obliterates the performance of Remarkable Paper Pro. Similar story continues with the writing latency, because Tab X C performs absolutely phenomenally at 6.26 milliseconds. And Remarkable Paper Pro is not a slouch either, because it does an impressive 12.5 milliseconds writing latency, but that is simply not enough to kind of compete with the absurdly fast performance of the Tab X C. So the final results of averaged 10 runs for each of them look like this, with Remarkable Paper Pro averaging out a writing latency of 14.6 milliseconds, and Tab X C averaging out at 7.5 milliseconds, basically half the speed of Remarkable Paper Pro. And both of these performances are pretty much amongst the best on the planet right now as far as the writing latency goes. But what's also interesting to see is that both of these are using active digitizers and active styluses, or styli, maybe. Surface distance test measures the distance between the surface of the screen that you're writing on and the actual display panel or your content. And on the Tab X C, this distance is unusually large at 1.7 millimeters. And I guess they've had to kind of increase that because of the large panel size and the type of the front light that is being used. But I've remeasured and remeasured and remeasured, and it always comes out the same. This measurement is considerably better on the Remarkable Paper Pro at just a smidge under 1 millimeter, which is basically a standard value that we've seen on devices equipped with a front light. And lastly, we get to just see, and because it's an interesting kind of thing, but it doesn't really affect the final DAF score because it's display analysis framework, not the battery life doesn't really affect it, but it's part of there for the device comparison tool, and might be interesting to see how these devices perform. And we can see that with the front light turned off and on average, which is 50%, Tab X C is outperforming considerably the Remarkable Paper Pro. But when we put that front light it to full 100%, then it underperforms slightly in reading tasks. But that only makes sense because, yeah, remember that frontlight on the Remarkable Paper Pro is of a much, much lower intensity than it is on the Tab X C. Therefore, it spends less power. The writing performance is fairly similar between both of them, with Remarkable Paper Pro outperforming the Tab X C slightly with 12 hours of continuous writing per charge with the front light turned off. But as soon as you start using the front light, then Remarkable Paper Pro kind of spends a little bit more power than what you would see on the Tab X C. So these guys have been trading punches back and forth between different categories, and I was genuinely interested to see how they would perform. But yeah, I was not expecting that the final results that we have right now on the DAF methodology are going to be this close. So they are really, really close overall in general performance. So they definitely have like this opposites kind of thing where one thing is really strong at, the other one is really weak at, and vice versa. So I guess that's how we get to have this type of a result. But let's see, what do the results say for the e-reader category? Well, here Remarkable Paper Pro is edging ahead of the Tab X C. And my guess here would be that the contrast and uniformity differences are mainly basically making this change between the two. Because if you remember, in contrast and uniformity, Tab X C performs badly because that Kaleido panel is just really, really dark. When we switch over to the e-notebook category, Remarkable Paper Pro edges ahead even more, which is helped by better reflectivity and a lower distance. But I think that the dominant factor here is going to be that massive, massive difference in the writing surface, where Remarkable Paper Pro is simply in a completely different league than the Tab X C is, and that is reflected in the e-notebook category score. However, when we go to e-tablet score, well, then the tables turn, and Tab X C vastly outperforms the Remarkable Paper Pro, which only makes sense. While both are equipped with the front light and a color display, which is something that is accounted for in the e-tablet category, the overall functionality, the refresh times, and the presence of the Google Play Store and everything else is something that gives Tab X C a fair bit of an edge over the Remarkable Paper Pro if you're looking for a device that will serve the purpose of an e-tablet. Wow, that was like a boxing match, basically like one round here, one round there, one round here, one round there. I've been comparing quite a few devices here, and I haven't really seen that many like seesaw results as we've seen with the Remarkable Paper Pro and the Tab X C. So for me, that aspect was absolutely interesting. What I'm starting to find also very insightful is regarding the color displays, how they are acting, what the calibration is like, and basically what are the aspects that we are as humans reacting to positively and what are we reacting to negatively. Because the numbers that the DAF methodology gives you, they're just like objective measurements, but they are not necessarily gonna be like a driver of an opinion. I take those numbers more like something that can help me understand what it is that I'm reacting to positively or negatively in different aspects of these devices. With that in mind, please do let me know in the comments down below what are your opinions, what are your thoughts, and have you found something interesting or insightful in these types of videos, and particularly in this video. I hope that you liked the video. If you did, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bell in the description down below to get notified when new videos come out on my deep guide. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!